Joe, are you gonna let her go in the office?
I think she's been in the office probably.
Oh, actually. This is kind of what we're working with.
It's okay. If you caught me on the good camera, I'd say I'm too bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna help me in. But all right, everyone, this is Premier One's facilities. So those of you that watch our farm channel a lot, you know that's kind of where we get all of our supplies, and in reality, it's the only one I really know about. So Joe here offered to give me a tour of the facility. Like I said, we've been buying supplies from them for a long time, since we started our farm, and really enjoy it. So now we're actually getting to see the facility and even see how some of the stuff is made here. So this is Fiona, and what is your job here?
I am the livestock manager at Premier.
Livestock manager, okay.
Yes.
So you're me, but here.
Yes. Yep.
Got it.
We're here in southeast Iowa at the Premier, we call it Premier Experimental Farms.
Okay.
Because we test out all of the products that we sell in the business.
So you don't just throw products out saying, oh, it'll be good, just use it.
Yeah, we test out all the products to make sure they're going to work for other farmers.
Good. So I understand that you guys lamb kind of the same concept as we do. So ours are out on the pasture 9 months of the year. And just our natural lambing cycle, they tend to lamb December, January time frame. Ours breed mainly by daylight, it seems. The longest days of the year is when they breed, and then it just happens that they end up lambing around that time. So we bring them into the barn for that. How does your guys' operation run as far as that goes?
We actually do accelerated lambing,
Okay.
so we want our ewes to be as productive as possible, and we want to have a product to sell year round. So, I mean, the farm does need to generate some income for itself, even though we work in tandem with Premier One supplies. So we like to have a product to sell, and we like to support the local economy. So we have a constant supply of lambs to sell to the local sale barn, which is about half an hour away.
Okay. So it sounds like very similar.
And we also sell breeding stock because we have hair sheep. So we there's a growing demand for hair sheep. So we're producing more and more breeding stock as we improve our flock.
So how many? I'm going to show this as well as we're talking. So how many do you guys actually have in here right now, I guess?
In here, it's actually hard to say. This lambing barn was built a couple years ago. I think we can house up to 98 ewes. We have double pens, and then we have single pens. We call them jugs. Yep. And we use our aluminum panels here for most of it. It all kind of started out as an experiment when it was built, so we're still kind of working through things. We do all of our lambing indoors because in the past we've had a lot of problems with predators, and we also lamb so intensively. This just makes our jobs a little easier. It makes it a little less stressful for the animals, which is super important to me, and less stressful on the employees. We're all hired help. We're not a family farm. So Stan and Jean, the owners, rely on us to take care of the animals. So we have it set up this way because it's actually heated as well. We have a heater up there. So in the winter, we keep this barn at 40 degrees. And, ideally we like to have it open like it is right now, but come January or February, we do have to close it up and heat it, but that's also better for the animals. We have a watering system, so we don't want the water to freeze. And then we also prevent hypothermia in the lambs.
So Joe and I have to wear these funny looking boots, but you don't.
No. That is for biosecurity for both of us.
Good.
We don't want you to bring in any diseases, and we don't want you to take any diseases back to your farm.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
We generally, when I say we do accelerated lambing, we try to lamb from September through May, and it is going against the natural cycle of the sheep. So we have to work a little bit harder with the genetics, and we have to use other means to get them to lamb this time of year. The other challenge is the heat. When we're breeding for this time of year, it's very hot in southeast Iowa. It's very hot and it's very humid. So we have some trouble getting them bred. So we tend to have more singles this time of year than we do in the winter lambing, but we do also have twins and triplets. The group that's lambing right now, there's some older ewes, so we're having more multiples. The group that lambed a few weeks ago, we're kind of on a every 2 week schedule. We try to work it out that way. So we're lambing groups of 100 at a time, ideally. Sometimes it's smaller groups. But right now, the group that we had 2 weeks ago, they were mostly yearlings. So we had a lot more singles. Our jugs here have hog nipples, and that's how we water them. That way we don't have to do individual buckets. And then we hand feed our TMR, which is a total mixed ration. Yeah. We hand feed that to the ewes while they're in here.
So your guys' ewes are very friendly then. I could tell obviously anyways because she's not really trying to go anywhere.
They are friendly for the most part, but the younger ones tend to be a little crazier. They need to get, it takes them a little while to get used to being in here. And our system is that we actually, before they lamb, we put them into these jugs. We don't want to because we do so much lambing, we don't want them in a big group when they're lambing. We avoid confusion and mismothering. And so we ultrasound, we use cedars, we ultrasound. So we kind of have an idea when they're going to lamb, and we go by how the udder looks, and we put them in here before they lamb. We still have them lamb out back. It's not a perfect system, but for the most part, we want them in here lambing. And then, like I was saying, we don't do night checks. We're all about having sheep that can perform for us in a production system. So they need to be able to lamb on their own and take care of their young without our help. If we do need to help, we will, but for the most part, we want sheep that can just do this on their own. And we've been working towards that, and we have to pull fewer and fewer lambs.
Hi, Becca.
Hello, good morning. Becca basically runs this barn. We have 3 people on staff full-time. I'm the livestock manager, and then we have Will, who is a mechanic and helps us with the feeding and haying and all the other things fixing all the things.
So you guys do your own hay too?
Yes, we make all our own feed. And then this barn is so efficient that labor-wise that Becca can do most of the work herself. We will come in and help her as needed, and we rotate weekend schedules, but she's basically in here full-time when we're lambing like this.
That is the goal of any barn, I would say.
Yes.
But, well, obviously, I mean, you guys have all the overhang like that just so you can run your water lines.
Yep. This was actually built with a system for grain as well. It was kind of built like a hog barn. The original intention was that we had lines coming down. We were feeding a grain into there. And what we found out is that it didn't work very well for sheep.
That was going to be my next question, is if you guys tried to use an air system to feed.
We did try that, and we found that the sheep just couldn't self-regulate, and they overate. The jugs were a mess. We had issues with metabolic issues like ketosis and milk fever because the sheep were just not able to regulate themselves. And then we actually removed it and started hand feeding the TMR in here.
So perhaps that's a species issue, because we've noticed the same thing. If you give them, you let them, they'll eat all day.
Yes, they will. And so, keeping them healthy and, happy during kind of a stressful time is really important to us.
So it's almost like when people sit there and think that we're being mean because, hey, you're only getting fed, say, 2 times a day or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. It's actually much better for them.
So it's for their health.
Yes.
Interesting how that works.
Yeah, because when you're dealing with ewes that are lambing twice a year or even once a year, they can go downhill quickly if their nutrition is out of whack. And we work with the nutritionist, and he formulates all of our feed that we feed them during this time to keep them healthy.
So all of these lambs and ewes got kicked out this morning. So this is kind of like a beginner group pen for them, so the ewes can find their babies can find their moms. We can kind of monitor, make sure no one's getting lost or neglected. It's great for us just to be able to see them run around and make sure everyone's staying healthy. And after 24 hours or so, then they'll get moved over to our big barn and join the rest of their group. So out here there's 28 and there's another 34 from the same lambing period in the other barn. We've got a system here. You can see two different colors. We've got orange and purple. The purple indicates that the ewe has one lamb on her, and orange indicates two. Anytime a ewe has triplets, we'll pull one and put it on our automated milk machine. This gives all of the lambs an opportunity to grow at a similar rate. Since we are a production farm, we want them to be able to go to market at a similar time.
Have a really close average weight.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And it reduces the amount of stress on the udder. And since we do have the accelerated program, we want to preserve the integrity of the udder as much as possible. So we're really careful to monitor udder health. And, you know, sometimes we have lambs that get those really sharp teeth, and we'll come through and either find one that maybe the ewe is kicking them off a lot and her bag is really big. That can indicate that problem. So we'll go through and just file down the teeth a little bit, and then both mom and babies are happy.
So the lamb that was just in had orange on it, so it indicated twin, but also had a coal tag in it.
Yeah, so we're really careful about the traits that we keep in our flock. So that lamb had a cull tag. It was a female, and that she had a cull tag because she has double teats.
Okay.
And we want to keep ewes with a single set of teats. Right. If the double set of teats are too big, lambs can get confused and become malnourished because they're trying to nurse off a set of teats that really isn't
connected or don't work.
Yeah, exactly.
I see O-rings on some and not others.
So we have there's a lot to it. So all of our females will get banded.
Can we walk out there?
Yeah, of course.
Let's walk out there. Might be able to see the tag a little better too.
So the females, all of our females will get banded, whether they're a multiple or a single. And then our males will stay fully intact if they're going to auction or to the market. We are trying to keep some of our genetics from ewes that have a really great lambing record. They're having multiples every time. They're lambing multiple times a year. Maybe not every year, but you know, if they have a history of lambing multiple times, that's a plus. She's got good milk production. She sheds out. There's all sorts of different traits that we're looking for. But if she really stands out with her lambing performance, then we'll put a red keeper tag in the right ear of the ram lamb, as well as band him. And this helps to, you know, reduce the chance of fly strike, keep them looking a little bit more presentable, things like that. So there's a couple little guys running around here with a red tag. They'll say keeper on it.
So I've noticed that you dock the tails on just on the ewe lambs or on all of them?
All of the ewe lambs except for the culls and keeper ram lambs.
And what's the purpose of docking the tails?
There's a couple different purposes, especially here in the Midwest when it gets really hot and humid during the summer. It can lead to fly strike if we're not careful, and that can happen really, really quickly. Keeps them looking a little bit more presentable. And for the ewes especially, it helps with breeding, in theory. We don't dock them super short. We like the tails to be long enough to cover the vulva and keep them protected in that way. But it just helps keep them a little bit cleaner and prevents them from getting a bunch of poop all stuck to them and stuff like that. So this is a male. The tag is in the left ear.
Yep.
It's green. So he's from Katahdin Sires. And then another thing that we do that's a little unique, right here at the top, we put fall and the year that the season and the year that they're born.
That's a great idea.
So that way when we're running them through the chute, say we've got an older group like the one that's in the big barn now at weaning, if we find that there are some problems, we can look through and say, okay, it's consistent with this season, this year, what happened and why is it happening.
And so you can look back and see if it was maybe because of the drought year, something caused something kind of in everybody, or if this is just a one-off situation.
Exactly.
And you're doing that on a scrapey tag, right?
Yep, these are scrapey tags.
You're getting a lot of information on that in general.
Yep, and you'll see that the older ewes have an additional tag on the other side. That's their RFID tag, and we can use a wand reader. We use the AWR 300 from Agrident to record a lot of information, and it helps us basically stay on top of every little detail we could possibly imagine.
So that RFID one that you're talking about, that, because we've looked at a few and we're not there yet ready to purchase, but we've wanted to research to ensure that we're getting something that is going to be beneficial and I'm getting my money's worth. Those are allowing you, because like how we keep our records is there's an Excel data sheet, and so whatever the tag number is, for instance, we'll have the mom's information, birth weight, what vaccinations they needed, if they needed dewormed for some reason. So we're on a rotational grazing program, and it's our need to interact with the animals are pretty minimal, which is good. But then if I have to interact with somebody a lot, I want to know, and I want to see again if it's everybody from that lambing group or if it's just one or two,
Right.
to see what the issues are. So I like that. But I asked that because so the RFID allows you to do that same concept, but without the Excel data sheet.
Exactly. So the system that we use is Select Sheepwear out of Ireland.
Okay.
And every ewe in the database has her own identification card, essentially, and it has everything from her lambing record, her medical history, fertility. So anytime she's scanned open or however many times she's had lambs, and it allows us to track a lot of different things, including like, is she shedding out every year? Is she needing help with lambing? What's her milk quality? Her vaccination schedule, things like that. That way we can see who's missed anything. And
Does it, so like if you guys have a chute system that you run everybody through? So does it have I guess a home station style thing where like if you're running them through the chute, it will automatically pull their card up and allow you to look at that, or do you still just have to wand them?
I can do that right on the wand.
Okay.
So the wand has allowed us to become really efficient. One person and a dog can run a whole group through and do all of the vaccinations, sort if we need to. The wand has an alert system, so I can go through and program it ahead of time to say if we've got groups 1 and 2 together just for pasture management purposes. I can go through and set an alert and say, all right, we need to sort off group 1 only. It'll buzz or like vibrate, make a noise, and flash a light at us. And we just mark their heads, and that way, as they're coming through the chute, we just sort them off, and group 1 usually comes in here for the rest of their gestation, and the other group goes back out onto pasture.
That doesn't make it much simpler than, or they don't make it much simpler than that, I guess, do they?
That's pretty good. It's become a very useful tool and helped us become incredibly efficient.
Your dog's probably more efficient than mine, because I need at least 2 people on the dog. She's a puppy and she's working through some things.
Yeah, we use Rex works for just about everybody, and he does some good jobs. He does a good job. So
I'll have to have Spirit call him and get some pointers.
for sure. But
A little rough sometimes, but
yeah, the RFIDs it's allowed us to correlate their original lamb tag with a new tag in the event that they lose one.
yeah.
We'll be able to still pull up their record and find them and not lose track of them quite as easily.
I like how it actually, that's a lot of information that it'll tell you. That's really handy.
And it's helped our system just in terms of who are we going to retain, who's going to make our program better. At this point, we only want the ones that are really going to serve us well, and those that aren't can move on. So it's a totally different tag.
Yeah, I see that. There's no number on it, it's just...
It has a number engraved on it. You can't really see it from this angle, but it has that little microchip, and...
Not the mama.
Not the mama. You just run the wand over it, and it pulls up her number and the correlated EID tag, or sorry, the scrapey tag that's correlated with it, and you can pull up her record right on the wand, see who she is, what group she's part of, all of the information you could possibly want to know, right right there working in the chute.
That's really awesome. This is your, what barn is this now?
This is our main barn. We call it the big barn.
All right.
It houses our handling facility. Right, this is our main handling facility that we use. And it houses most of the ewes with lambs while they're lactating.
All right. And then the sides, they don't roll up.
No,
they just
the
have
sides,
windows.
Yeah,
only.
they just have the screen material, so we still get airflow.
Yep.
And we do have these windows that we can open and close, but we kind of gotten to the point where we took a bunch of them out. Rain and snow will get in, but for the most part, we'd rather have the airflow.
Oh, so even in the winter, you don't, like the sides aren't closed down solid?
No, we tend to get it more on that side, so we will close them if the weather gets really bad, but it's few and far between.
Oh no, I mean like the screens in general.
Oh, the screen.
The screen in general is not closed at all?
No, these just stay in place.
Everything just stays in place?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, nothing is.
I mean, I guess it'll reduce strong winds.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yep.
I don't know, I'm probably thinking more like cattle, or not cattle, well yeah, cattle barns too, where
Yeah.
they have the dairies and then hogs.
Yeah,
Hogs are
we've toyed
sensitive
with the
temperatures.
idea of like curtains where you can open and close, but we're just kind of stuck with this for the time being. Seems to work.
I say, I mean, if it seems to work, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah, and we also have fans in here. They're off right now because we're getting
it's
the
not
weather's
really-
a lot cooler. But in the middle of summer, this barn gets pretty stagnant, so we have those fans running. Okay. But also in the middle of summer, we don't always have sheep in here.
Yeah.
Everybody tends to be out on pasture in the hottest part of the year.
So they had to show me this gate, and it's actually pretty neat. Unfortunately, it's not something they're gonna sell to you, but it actually slides out. You can spin the whole thing around. You can do kind of whatever you need to with it. So why does Gretchen get a bell and nobody else does?
Gretchen's just a special sheep.
Easiest to catch.
She was an orphan. She was a bottle lamb. And she's always kind of followed us around, so we decided to put a bell on her to keep track of her. And she's become the farm mascot and pet and catalog model.
Emotional support sheep.
Yeah, it's
Emotional support sheep,
for
okay.
all of us. And the Dorper footstool, that's her other nickname.
Quite the following.
Yes. She doesn't have her own Instagram yet, but we.
Oh, that's what I was about to ask. Does she have her own Instagram or TikTok or anything?
We've considered. But
I'm gonna convince you guys before I leave to make her an Instagram or a TikTok.
despite being a pet, she is actually a very productive ewe.
That's always good.
Yeah. She is earning her keep, yes.
That's so cool, huh? Now, is she pregnant again?
No, she's just large.
She's just large. She's wide load. And yeah, she only had a single this year, but she had, this fall, she had twins this past winter.
Large Marge, huh?
Yeah.
She's
Yep.
used to possible sides of the sheep.
Yeah.
Well, this might explain a little bit of her disposition.
Easily persuaded with snacks. Did you want more? You're gonna eat it right off the cob?
She might. She needs the cob holders. Yeah, you put a little butter on there, she'll eat it. Alright, so the bedding that you guys have here
Yep.
is very different.
It's very different. So with the business, there is a large amount of cardboard that's generated, being brought in with various different packaging and, you know, the net boxes and things like that. And for a while, we were sending it back over to China to be recycled. Is that correct?
Something like that.
Something like that, but-
there's some recycling and that avenue dried up.
Yep, that dried up, and we needed a way to use the cardboard and not just like put it in a burn pit and set it on fire. And so Stan had the idea to grind it up and try it for bedding. And so what we've been doing is a mix of corn stalk and cardboard, and we find that a nice mix like that works really well. It's actually it does pretty well absorbing. you know, the urine and the feces and stuff like that, and keeps everything nice and dry. We don't really have to bed too terribly often, even when, you know, the barn is full like this, maybe twice a week if the barn is like completely packed. But for the most part, I mean, it's light enough that when the wind comes through there's some movement through it. It keeps it fairly dry, and yeah, it's a great way to reduce, reuse, and recycle.
Okay.
Pick up plastic every now and then.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the star of your drone footage that you just saw. This is Rex. Rex is Fiona's border collie, and he helps obviously move the sheep around here.
Yep.
But since we're on the pasture, I know you guys had a drought year. We were talking about that a little bit, but others that are viewing probably don't know so much. How, on a normal year, are you managing the sheep in comparison to being in the barns or out here?
In a normal year, we try to have as many ewes out on pasture as possible, and we do rotationally graze. We don't rotationally graze as intensively as I'd like to, but part of that is because we have so many groups of sheep in different stages. They're either open or they're early gestation, late gestation, so we have to keep the sheep in multiple groups. And so that, cuts in on time, and we also make our own feed. We make all of our own hay, baleage, and those are the bales that are down on the bottom of the hill there. Okay. But we generally, we have permanent fence. We have 3 different farms. We have permanent fence on the perimeter of all the pastures, but we utilize our electric netting and 2-strand fence to subdivide those so we can graze a little more intensively and have grass to go back to. But we also rotate the pastures that like this pasture that you see here, we also hay this once or twice a year.
Okay. And so being able to use the electric netting, like, we'll have to go over there and show them, but making it to where you can divide it and not be obviously swamped with the amount of time and effort you're going to put into moving that fence has to be the trade-off as far as, it's got to be worth your time. So if it was, something that if you had less groups or if you had one big group, obviously it'd be pretty easy to deal with. But, when you're talking about doing it with 5 or 6 of these guys, that'd be a big challenge. Yes. And would probably take a good part of your day.
Yeah, in an ideal world, I would give them new grass every day, but that's not going to happen. Yeah. So generally, I kind of eyeball it based on, the state of the grass at the time. I'll make them kind of the size that will last them 3 to 5 days. Okay. And so we kind of also have to work with our haying schedule because we only have 3 people on staff, plus the owner. So there are 4 of us making feed, but also taking care of all the animals.
It sounds like you're probably about the same schedule as us. So like in the early spring, when we first start back into rotational grazing, it's 2 or 3 days just because the grass is growing slow.
Yep.
But for the most part, all of our summer is 5 days. And we don't ever do more than 5. I'm guessing probably the same reason as you, parasites hatch.
Yes. Yep.
Look at that. See? I knew something.
Yep.
So it's a really beautiful pasture they have, though.
Yeah.
Nice scenery.
It's very nice.
I'm sure the fall leaves changing.
Yeah,
really,
a lot of
people accent it too.
A lot of people think of Iowa, southeast Iowa.
No, we were not referencing Joe.
A lot of people think of southeast Iowa and they just assume it's a nice flat place, but this actually reminds me of New York State, nice rolling hills. So that's where I've farmed previously, and I really like the landscape, and this is one of my favorite spots on the farm.
If you ever get to South Central Missouri,
Yep.
we have plenty of hills free to view.
Nice.
Lots of trees too.
According to Fiona, this is a little steeper part of the pasture. It's right behind the owner's house. So on occasion we'll have sheep back there when we need a little more scenic for photos. But right now we're keeping the sheep off, but we're subdividing it with, this is permanent, so that's a 48-inch fence. And if you look at the post, it's a little thicker than what you would see on our Electronet. So this is a 19mm post. It's 19 or 21, as opposed to 15, which is on most of the Electronet.
Okay. So roughly about 3/4 of an inch.
Yep. So that thicker post, what that does for us, it gives us a little more rigidity, and we also have a little bit larger spike on this. So when you're setting up a fence for a longer period of time, and you're not going to move it that often, this maintains tension very well. And I misspoke earlier because I think I called this permanent. It's actually electro fence. So
Electro
I was
fence,
wrong
okay.
on the name. Electro fence, but the permanent has the same post. So this is a very similar mesh to what we run on Electronet, which is our daily or weekly mover temporary fence. And this one's going to be a monthly or less often. So if you look here, it's been here a while, and we have a lot of grass contact on it. But I bet if I touch it, I would be hurt, because we put a good size Energizer on it so it can get through that weed load.
I can hear it touching over here, but I'm not willing to touch it. But if you want to be the demonstrator, I won't stop
I
you.
prefer not. No need for me to scream today.
And then, so Fiona and Becca, I'm sorry, will move this on. You guys just move
actually,
it as
this
needed, obviously not
being
every day.
permanent, this stays up all season.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, whenever you guys subdivide a pasture.
When we're subdividing pasture, we'll probably move it, on a weekly basis.
Okay. And how long?
5 to 7 days.
How long does it take you to move it, and how long is the fencing that you're moving? Say 100 feet, 200
the
feet.
164 feet is the long sections.
Okay.
I mean, we can put 2 or 3 of those up in 15-20 minutes. I like to call ourselves Electronet ninjas. We're pretty fast at it, and we got a good system. I mean, there are times when we're doing it by ourselves, but if you work with 2 people, it goes really quickly. And in my farming career, I've always used Electronet, and I've been on farms that had no permanent fencing, and I would move Electronet every day. It's really easy.
Good to hear. All right, so tell us about your marshmallow farm here.
This is all the baleage. We do baleage, which is wrapped round bales. We bale it, and we bale it wet, and then we wrap it immediately, and that way we produce a more nutrient-dense feed with higher protein. Okay. As opposed to just making dry hay.
So this is fermented, essentially.
Yes, it's basically fermented.
Okay.
It's basically silage, but when it's in bale form like this, it's called baleage.
Yep.
And so when we do, this year was a terrible year for us because we were in drought. We got that initial growth in the spring, and so we were able to make a first cutting. And so everything you see here is what we made on this farm. We have 2 other farms, so we make baleage on all 3 farms. And the main reason we don't do silage in bags like some people do is because we have the 3 farms and we need to be able to move the bales around. So we put them into bale form, wrap them, and we also don't have good hay storage. So even when we do make dry hay, we wrap them just to keep them dry.
So I'm asking just out of curiosity in general. Our neighbors, they wrap their hay for cattle. Yep. But they do it in a line. So like, basically you put one bale in, you put the next bale in, and it just makes one long line instead of the individual marshmallows. Yep. Any reason that you guys don't do that, or just?
I think that's a similar system where they're not entirely wrapped. They're just as you pull them out. Yep. And so, like I was saying, because we have to move them from one farm to the other, we need them to stay wrapped, because as soon as they're exposed to air, they can spoil. Yeah. Like that bale right there's got a little nick in it. Yep. I should have taped that, but that bale might go bad because it has that. So we do have some waste where we have to get rid of bales that spoil, but for the most part we're pretty we've been pretty lucky. It's pretty high quality, because you do run the risk of listeria and other problems. The sheep can get sick if they're eating spoiled baleage. Yeah.
They did the tubes about 10, 12 years ago.
Yep.
And they ran into about some listeria issues then. So they went from tubes into individual wrap, and I think had better success with it too.
Yeah.
That and portability is the big one.
Yep, and it helps us when we use our the vertical mixer wagon, so we're able to measure pretty well what we're putting into the mixer wagon.
What are these different letters for? It's MPI, Geo.
This all indicates the different fields.
Oh, okay.
We try to track what fields they come from, because we kind of know what the forage content of the fields are. Like that one SM1 stands for the field that's behind us here.
Okay.
That's south of Mark's first cutting. And so we know that that's a heavier clover, higher protein bale. And so when we're doing the total mix ration mix in the mixer wagon, we can pick specific bales. And it also helps us, track the, how many bales we get off each field and things like that.
Well, I guess, if you had an issue with, say, a field that has something that's causing some issues with the sheep.
Yes.
You'll know which bales it came from.
And there are also ones that, turn into, like, we'll bale it and it doesn't look that good, and we'll label that as bedding. Gotcha. So usually if you see B or H on the bales, that indicates it's hay or bedding.
Gotcha.
But most of these are baleage that will go into our feed mix. But we also feed these individually, not this time of year because it's still kind of warm, but we will feed them individually out on the pasture in the winter to groups that are being outwintered. And we use those panel feeders that Premier sells.
Okay.
And those work pretty well.
Well, I didn't know that's how marshmallows were made.
Yep.
Take one, roast it over the fire.
Yeah, so when you guys roast them over the fire, you just use the tractor, right? You just hit them with forks and just hold it there.
Take the plastic off first.
Yeah. Plywood for graham crackers.
Yep. Yeah, we got a fire going back there. We could try one out.
Joe, I'm going to let you test that.
No,
I feel like it won't be the s'mores that I'm used to.
I'm not a ruminant. I wouldn't be able to fully appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, so on the way to see the goats here.
Yep.
Fiona's just telling me about the goats' specific pasture. So like what they kind of live in.
This is their pasture right now. It's what we call the thicket. It's a wooded area, so they have access. Goats really like browse, so they have access to that. But then they have a kind of a grassy area on these hills. We have been in a drought this year, so the grass isn't. The grass looks pretty nice, but it really doesn't have the nutrient density that we need. And these goats are pregnant. They're due in November, December. So we are actually supplementing them with soy hulls, just about a pound per head per day. So we're gonna feed them soy hulls right now.
It's your time to shine, buddy.
Oh wait. That'll do.
Guys, they gotta check the bucket first.
So our goat herd is primarily, we've got purebred boars. Our older does are purebred boar, and then a couple years ago we brought in an American Savannah that we purchased in Indiana, and so we've been crossbreeding ever since then. We mainly did that for hybrid vigor. We were having some issues with our purebreds not performing to our standards, so we've been trying to create better genetics in the herd. So a lot of the younger ones you see are boar Savannah crosses. Most of these are pregnant. The ones with the O's on them scanned open, so the ones that don't have any mark on them are pregnant, and they're due in a couple months here.
What do you guys use to scan them?
We actually had our vet come and do it.
Oh, okay.
We have a woman that comes and scans most of the sheep and goats, but she wasn't available, so we had our local vet come and do it. She did an ultrasound machine, has a little portable ultrasound machine, and So yeah, the primary reason we have the goats is, you know, we do need content, because a lot of the products that we sell can be used for sheep and goats, and so we want to show the goat producers that we have all these things available for them too.
Yeah, the goats are actually using them, and we're not just saying, hey, I think it'll work.
They are beneficial to our pasture rotations too, because we have areas like this where the sheep don't, you know, eat everything, and the goats will go in and clear a lot of the brush, and they eat poison ivy, which is really nice. And they're also a good way to test our fencing, because as you all know, goats are very difficult to contain. So they present a lot of challenges, so we're always looking for better ways to fence them in.
So Fiona was nice enough to show us around all day today, and we really appreciate it. Her and Becca. Dang it. I'm sorry, Becca. Her and Becca were really helpful, and I appreciate the tour. Just wanted to show you all that, you know, everything that they're selling here, they're actually using, they're testing it. They're not just putting stuff on the site and saying, yeah, it works, buy it. There's actually research that goes on behind it. And then not only that, but them having all these animals here to research and kind of develop sheep programs helps to teach us that are either new with sheep or even still learning with sheep, because you're always learning, helps to teach us other ideas and options to go forward with our farming, because we all know that days are changing every day, you know, farther and farther in advancement with technology. Farming is going to change whether we want it to or not, so we may as well be on board and try to be ahead of the curve and not get, you know, left behind. So thank you, Fiona, I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And just remember that even though everything that you see here, it may not be what your farm is doing, but it's still giving you ideas for it. And just because they're doing it a certain way here doesn't mean it's necessarily the right way for your farm either. So just keep that in mind as well. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
and,
you're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Hope to see you guys again sometime.
Yeah.
All right, so Joe is gonna continue this tour with us a little bit, because I ordered something that's hopefully gonna help my farm. They have a tagging protocol here, and we're gonna start a new one at our farm. So I intend to use red tags for all the ram lambs that are born. And the reason being is because red will identify it's a male, and in my case, it's not staying there, it can't. But then also I'm gonna do a yellow and a white. So the yellow will be for ewes or ewe lambs that for whatever reason, hey, you know, we don't want them, we're culling them and they need to go to the sale barn with the red tagged ram lambs. And then white is our main flock. So they're actually gonna print ours here, because if you go on their site, you can kind of, well, about any scrapey tag you might need, or any variation of it you might need, they have it. So I encourage you to go to their site and check it out, but we're gonna show you how they're made in here. So we're just kind of showing how the magic happens. Ashley?
Yes.
Unfortunately won't get to be on camera, just because the simple fact that we don't want to show anything inside their facilities that isn't already approved. She puts it in the program, and then right down here you can see how all the magic happens. It literally just etches it straight onto the ear tag styles that you buy, and you can get, like we've got, where you have your logo for your farm, but then on the bottom, or on the female one, you can see that it's got our farm number.